Rain streaked down Fifth Avenue like melted silver. A black Maybach skidded slightly to a halt at the crosswalk, too close to a beat-up bicycle. "Jesus Christ, are you blind?" The rider jumped off, slamming a palm on the hood, drenched, furious, unapologetic. "You almost killed me!" From the back seat, a calm voice replied, "You were going the wrong way." The door opened. Celeste Langford stepped out in a dove-gray trench coat, heels clicking against wet concrete. Her posture screamed wealth, her face unreadable. The man scoffed. Of course, designer heels and no accountability. She blinked once. "And you clearly think shouting makes you right." That night, Celeste's assistant rushed into her office. "Emergency, your driver just quit. I found someone temporary, but he's not exactly polished." The door opened. Liam Hayes. Still damp, still glaring. "Didn't know I was yelling at New York's favorite ice queen. If I had, I'd have yelled louder." She should have fired him. Instead, she said, 30 days. You drive, you shut up, you show up on time. I need the money. I don't need your attitude." Contract signed. Fate sealed. That night, he pulled the car off course, taking a detour. "Excuse me? My mom's out in the rain. Need to drop her a coat." She looked out. A frail woman stood outside a bodega, shielding herself with a grocery bag. Celeste said nothing. And for the first time in years, she noticed how it felt to be second, to witness a man who put someone else first. Day 1. Liam arrived 11 minutes late. Day 2. He played rap music during her investor call. Day 3. He ate a bacon and egg sandwich in her leather-seated Maybach. "This is not a diner on wheels," she said, voice like ice. "Still gets you where you're going," he replied. Men usually groveled under her gaze, not Liam. He held it, challenged it, laughed at it, and somehow that bothered her more than any insult. Day 4, 7 a.m. He was waiting. Lollipop in his mouth, aviators on. 2 minutes late, she snapped. "Traffic," he shrugged. "You're replaceable. So is this job, but I need it to keep my mom breathing." For the first time, she had nothing to say. That evening, after a brutal board meeting, she sank into the back seat. He didn't drive. "Seatbelt," he said. She clicked it in. Their eyes met in the mirror. "You seem tired." He paused. "You want to see something real for a change?" She said nothing, but the car turned off Park Avenue. They arrived at a tiny diner in Queens. Neon sign flickering, smell of grease and cinnamon. "You eat waffles, right?" "They're carbs. So is misery. Try the waffles." He ordered for her. No servers in tuxedos, no imported wines. Just warm food, worn booths, and a man who looked at her without fear. He leaned back. "You ever laugh, Celeste Langford?" She arched a brow. "Do you ever shave?" That night, as they drove back through the drizzle, he tossed her his hoodie. "You'll catch a cold, princess." She put it on. And for a brief, terrifying moment, she didn't feel alone. By now, she recognized the sound of his boots on pavement, the lollipop flavors he rotated through, the smell of detergent on his hoodie. She hated how much she noticed. That morning, he was already parked when she stepped out, leaning against the hood, hoodie half-zipped, coffee in hand. "You're early," she snapped. "Traffic," he shrugged. "You're replaceable. So is this job, but I need it to keep my mom breathing." For the first time, she had nothing to say. That evening, after a brutal board meeting, she sank into the back seat. He didn't drive. "Seatbelt," he said. She clicked it in. Their eyes met in the mirror. "You seem tired." He paused. "You want to see something real for a change?" She said nothing, but the car turned off Park Avenue. They arrived at a tiny diner in Queens. Neon sign flickering, smell of grease and cinnamon. "You eat waffles, right?" "They're carbs. So is misery. Try the waffles." He ordered for her. No servers in tuxedos, no imported wines. Just warm food, worn booths, and a man who looked at her without fear. He leaned back. "You ever laugh, Celeste Langford?" She arched a brow. "Do you ever shave?" That night, as they drove back through the drizzle, he tossed her his hoodie. "You'll catch a cold, princess." She put it on.
And for a brief, terrifying moment, she didn't feel alone. By now, she recognized the sound of his boots on pavement, the lollipop flavors he rotated through, the smell of detergent on his hoodie. She hated how much she noticed. That morning, he was already parked when she stepped out, leaning against the hood, hoodie half-zipped, coffee in hand. "You're early. What can I say? I live to serve." They drove in silence. Halfway down Lexington, she asked, "Why no music today?" "Didn't want to ruin your mood. Stop trying to predict me. Stop barking orders." Their words weren't barbs anymore. They were conversations with thorns. That evening, she stepped out of a shareholder call and collapsed into the seat. Tension etched into her shoulders. He looked at her through the rear view. "You ever just escape?" She didn't answer. He drove anyway.
Another detour. Another no-name diner. This one near the water. Just 2 stools, a cook, and quiet. She ate slowly. No phones, no headlines. Just the faint sound of an old radio. "You seem sad," he said, eyes not leaving his plate. "You seem like someone who thinks he can fix things." "Nah," he leaned back. "I just recognize broken when I see it." On the way back, it rained again. He handed her his flannel. "It's ugly," she muttered. "Matches your mood." She didn't return it. And for the first time, she wondered what it would feel like if this ride never ended. The next morning, Celeste Langford arrived at her usual 7 a.m. The Maybach wasn't there. She checked her watch. 7:03. Still no car. Her chest tightened, an irritation that was oddly personal. By 7:05, her phone buzzed. Liam H. Running 5 men's behind. Got caught at the pharmacy. Chill. Chill. No one had ever texted her that word in that tone. She should have fired him on the spot. But instead, she waited. When he finally pulled up, wind-blown and unapologetic, she opened the door in silence. He looked at her through the mirror. "Sorry, my mom's oxygen tank needed a refill." She nodded once. "No more delays." "Then don't break my mother's lungs." He winked. She rolled her eyes. But something flickered at the edge of her lips, something not quite disdain. Later that day, Celeste stood in the middle of a heated product pitch meeting. Investors were cold, the creative director was stammering. Her patience was on fire. And then her assistant whispered in her ear. The showroom backdrop collapsed. Of course it did. By the time she stepped outside, it was raining again, because apparently nature had a sense of irony. Liam was already there, holding a ridiculously large umbrella. She stopped. He looked out of place, his hoodie soaked, jeans splattered with mud. But he held the umbrella over her with both hands, shielding her like she was something rare. "You look like hell," she said, climbing in. "You look like corporate stress personified," he replied, grinning. And then it happened. The corner of her lips twitched. A single, fleeting smile. He stared at her through the mirror. Was that a smile? Someone alert the press. "Shut up." "I saw it. You have teeth. Who knew?" She tried to hide it, but she couldn't, not fully. They drove through the city in a rare calm. For once, the silence between them didn't bite. It settled like a blanket, warm, worn in. "I used to love the rain," she said quietly, eyes fixed on the window. "Before everything got complicated." He didn't respond right away. "Complicated things still have beauty," he said finally, "even if it's a mess, especially if it's a mess." He dropped her off that evening without a word. But as she stepped out, he called after her. "Hey." She turned. "Thanks for not firing me. Yet." She tilted her head, amused. "I'm keeping you. For now." He gave a mock salute. "Honored, Your Majesty." She rolled her eyes again, but this time there was no frost in it. Inside her penthouse, alone with the city lights, Celeste sat with a cup of untouched tea. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about quarterly reports. She was thinking about a boy in a wet hoodie, standing in the rain, holding an umbrella like it was a shield. And she realized something strange. That smile she gave him, it hadn't been forced. It had been real.
Celeste hated Sundays. Not for religious reasons, not for rest, but because Sundays were slow, and slow left room for memories. That morning, she sat in the back of the Maybach, eyes distant, phone untouched, an oddity in itself. Liam glanced at her through the rear view. "No calls today?" She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "Today's the anniversary." "Of what?" "My father's death." He didn't say sorry. He didn't try to comfort her with cliches. He just drove, silently, gently.
And somehow, that said more. They pulled up to Langford Memorial Hospital, a towering glass building downtown. Liam raised a brow. Visiting someone? No, donating. He blinked. She stepped out without elaborating. When she returned 20 minutes later, her eyes were unreadable again, but softer. "He built this hospital," she said, sliding into the seat. Then he trusted the wrong man. One signature, one lie, and everything collapsed. Liam didn't ask who. He didn't have to. She turned her A's out the window, voice barely above a whisper. "He shot himself in our penthouse office. I was 17. The silence in the car thickened. Not cold, heavy, human. Liam's voice broke through it. "My dad walked out when I was 10. Mom raised me alone. Got sick 3 years ago. I do whatever job I can find to keep her meds stocked." Celeste turned to look at him. 2 worlds apart, and yet both shaped by abandonment, by sacrifice. She whispered, almost to herself, "You don't act like someone broken." "I don't have the luxury to break," he said. They stopped at a red light. A boy and his mother were selling flowers on the sidewalk. Celeste rolled down the window. 2. She handed the boy a crisp bill and passed one flower to Liam. He stared at it. "You trying to romance me, boss?" "Don't flatter yourself. It's for your mom." He smiled, slow, genuine, teasing. "And the other one?" She didn't answer, but she held the flower tighter. That evening, as they pulled up to her building, she didn't move. He turned in his seat. "You okay?" She nodded. Then, after a beat, "Thank you. For today." He scratched the back of his neck. "Didn't do much." "You didn't talk," she said. That was enough. She stepped out. He watched her walk away, not with her usual steel spine and clipped steps, but slower, almost hesitant. That night, Celeste placed the flower on her father's photo, and as she traced the glass frame with a trembling finger, she whispered, "Maybe I'm not alone in this world anymore." The weather forecast had warned of a storm. Celeste didn't care. She had a gala to host, one of those glitzy charity events where billionaires shook hands over flute glasses and photographers pretended to care about philanthropy. She arrived at the venue in a crimson backless gown, minimalist but lethal. Liam stood by the car, trying very hard not to look. "You're staring." "Not my fault gravity broke," he said without flinching. "You stepped out and the whole damn sidewalk tilted." She rolled her eyes, but her lips twitched. Inside the gala, it was the usual circus. Smiles that didn't reach eyes, champagne that tasted like ego, and conversation as hollow as crystal. Celeste played her part, smiled, nodded, danced with men who wore their money like armor. But every time she turned, her eyes wandered, through the tall windows, to the street below. He was still there, waiting by the car. And somehow, that grounded her more than anything in the room. It wasn't until nearly midnight that the storm broke loose. Thunder cracked, lights flickered, and Celeste, soaked in compliments but starved of sincerity, walked out early. No umbrella, no warning. She stepped into the downpour like someone surrendering. Liam rushed toward her. "Jesus, you're soaked. What are you doing?" "Escaping," she breathed. He threw his jacket over her shoulders and opened the back door. She didn't move. Their eyes locked in the rain. Thunder above, city behind, chaos everywhere, except this fragile stillness between them. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said quietly. "Not tonight." She didn't answer, just stood there, water tracing the angles of her face, mascara smudged like smoke. And then, slowly, she stepped closer. One step, then another, until there was barely a breath between them.
He didn't move. He didn't speak.
He just let the rain fall around them as she tilted her face up, inches from his. Their eyes locked. Their lips hovered. The silence grew louder than the storm. And then her phone rang. Shrill, awkward, cruel. She flinched. Reality came crashing back. She started, stepping back. I should go. He didn't stop her, didn't say a word, just stood there, water dripping from his hair, watching her retreat like a ghost who almost believed she could touch something real. Back in the car, the silence was different this time. Not cold, just fragile. She stared out the window. He drove. But neither of them could forget how close they came. To something real. To something forbidden. To something they couldn't afford to want. Celeste didn't sleep that night. Not because of the gala, not because of the rain, but because of the space between almost and never. The breath she almost shared with Liam. The kiss they both almost gave into. She told herself it was nothing. Just a lapse. Just a human moment. But her reflection in the mirror said otherwise. By noon, she was back in her corner office, floor-to-ceiling glass, skyline views, and folders filled with betrayal disguised as business. Her assistant entered, hesitant. "You asked me to run a background check on your temporary driver." Celeste blinked. She had forgotten. That request had been made weeks ago, back when Liam was just an annoyance, not whatever he was now. "Leave it," she said. The assistant hesitated. "There's something you might want to see." 15 minutes later, Celeste sat alone. Laptop open, dossier displayed. Name, Liam Jonathan Hayes. Mother, Margaret Hayes. Father, Richard Hayes, formerly known as CFO Richard Langford. Her hands went cold. No, it couldn't be. She scrolled down. Richard Langford was implicated in embezzlement from Langford Atelier in 2009, allegedly transferred funds to a private offshore account under the name of his childhood friend and CFO, Richard Hayes. The article had been buried, the headlines had been softened, but the truth her father died with, was flashing on the screen. Liam Hayes was the son of the man who betrayed her family. She stood, paced, sat. Her mind spiraled. Had he known? Was this some cruel cosmic joke? Or had fate stitched their paths together with irony sharp enough to cut? That evening, as the car pulled up to her building, Celeste didn't speak. Liam glanced back. "Rough day?" She stared straight ahead. "Who's your father?" He stiffened, just slightly. "Why?" "Answer me." His jaw locked. "Richard Hayes." Silence. He looked at her. "I figured you'd find out eventually." "So it's true." Her voice cracked, not from weakness, but the sound of a dam finally breaking. "You're the son of the man who destroyed my family." Liam didn't deny it, didn't offer a defense. He simply nodded. "He walked out when I was 10. I haven't seen him since." "That doesn't erase what he did." "I know." The car fell quiet again. But this silence was different. Sharp, fractured, brutal. She opened the door, paused. Was any of this real? Her voice was barely a whisper. He looked straight into her, eyes open, stripped bare. Yes. She left without another word. But in her chest, something caved in. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the realization that the one man she had started to trust might have been sent by fate not to heal her, but to remind her why she built walls in the first place. The next morning, Celeste Langford arrived at her office in all black. Not couture, not dramatic, just clean lines, severe, like armor. Her assistant tried to speak. She raised a hand. No meetings, no calls, no distractions. Today, she was done feeling. Today, she would think. The truth echoed in her mind on repeat. Liam Hayes, son of Richard Hayes, the man who stole everything from her family. The man who handed her father a pen soaked in betrayal. The man whose signature drained the accounts. The man whose lies pushed her father to the edge of a roof drop and over it. And now, his son had her heart on a string. How poetic, how pathetic. Celeste opened a secure folder on her private server, one labeled Contingency CFO Legacy. Inside, everything her legal team had quietly collected over the years. Shell companies, old emails, hidden transactions. She had buried this for years. But Liam had unearthed it with nothing more than a name. Now she would finish what her father started. Her plan wasn't childish. It wasn't even impulsive. It was calculated. She wouldn't fire Liam. She would keep him close, closer than ever, because part of her still didn't believe that he had nothing to do with it, that he hadn't known, that he hadn't come here to her with an agenda. That evening, she stood waiting beside her own car. Liam pulled up like every day before. He looked tired, shadowed, expectant. She smiled, and that somehow made him more afraid than if she'd screamed. "You're still taking the job?" he asked quietly. "Of course," she said, stepping into the car. 30 days. That was the agreement. He blinked. She leaned in slightly, eyes burning. "Unless you want out." He swallowed. "No." The drive was quiet, but the silence had changed again. This was tension with teeth. She gave him a location, not her home, a secluded resort, a company retreat, she said. He didn't ask questions. He just drove. Once there, she played her role well, laughing just a little too easily, touching his arm a little too long, looking at him like he was the only person in the room, because that's what he had done to her. Now it was her turn. At the end of the night, she leaned in and whispered near his ear, "You think you know me, Liam Hayes?" He froze. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." And she walked away, heels echoing through the hallway like war drums. Back in her suite, she dropped the mask, ripped off the heels, unzipped the dress, stared at herself in the mirror, and for the first time, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. Because this wasn't power. This wasn't strategy. This was heartbreak with eyeliner. And still, she couldn't stop. It had been 4 days since the retreat. 4 days since Celeste Langford stepped into her own trap. She had expected Liam to flinch, to get defensive, suspicious, angry. He didn't. He just kept showing up. On time, polite, wary, but still there. On the 5th morning, she opened the car door and found something different. A small paper bag in the passenger seat. "What's this?" she asked. "You skipped breakfast yesterday. I figured you wouldn't again." Inside, a sandwich, black coffee, no sugar, just how she liked it. She looked at him, stunned. "I didn't ask for this." "You didn't have to." He didn't even meet her eyes, just drove. She hated how her chest tightened, hated how his small kindnesses slipped beneath her armor before she could block them. Worse than hate, she missed him. Missed the annoying way he drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. Missed the way he looked at her like she wasn't porcelain. Missed how, when he laughed, it felt like a world she'd never been allowed to enter. That night, it rained again. She didn't tell him where she wanted to go. She just said, "Drive." They ended up in Queens, his neighborhood. He parked in front of a small red brick walk-up. "This is where you live?" "Top floor. Crappy heater, no elevator, best view in the borough." He hesitated. "You want to come up?" She should have said no. There were rules, lines, pride. Instead, she followed him. Each step up the stairwell felt like a step toward danger, not physical, but emotional. At the top, the door creaked open into a small, warm, cluttered apartment. Books stacked on the floor. A plant wilting in the window. One photo on the wall. Liam and an older woman, smiling with spaghetti sauce on their faces. "Your mom?" He nodded. "She's at chemo tonight. Comes back tomorrow." Celeste looked around. This world was nothing like hers. No marble floors, no champagne trays, no ice sculptures. And yet, she felt more at home here than anywhere she'd been in months. He handed her a cup of tea. She sat on the couch. They didn't speak for a while. Rain tapped on the windows like a metronome for emotions neither of them dared voice. Then Liam said, quietly, "If you want to use me to get back at my father, I won't stop you." Her head turned sharply. "What?" "I don't know what he did to you, Celeste, but I know what he did to me. He ruined your family, but he also walked away from mine, left my mom to die alone in a basement apartment." He looked at her, finally. "If I'm your revenge, fine, just don't lie about it." She couldn't breathe. Her whole chest ached, not from guilt, not from shame, from the terrifying realization that somewhere in her web of manipulation, she had fallen for the one person she swore she'd never touch with her heart. She reached out, touched his hand, held it. "I don't know what I feel anymore," she whispered. "Me neither," he said. But neither of them let go, not yet. The next morning, Celeste Langford sat in her corner office, staring out across the New York skyline, but seeing none of it. All she could feel was the ghost of Liam's hand in hers. All she could hear was his voice from the night before. "If I'm your revenge, fine, just don't lie about it." But she couldn't lie anymore. Not to him, not to herself. Because somewhere between manipulation and survival, she had started to feel everything she swore she never would. By 6:50 p.m., she was already outside, waiting by the car. When Liam pulled up, she didn't get in the back. She got in the passenger seat. He raised an eyebrow. "Promotion?" She smiled, small, tired. "Drive, anywhere." They ended up on the Brooklyn Bridge, parked just off the pedestrian path, the city lights flickering across the water like static. Liam turned off the engine, but kept the radio playing low. Old jazz, instrumental. Something about it made the air feel softer. They sat in silence. Until she spoke. "I wasn't honest with you." He didn't turn. He just waited. She continued. "When I found out who you were, I planned to keep you close, to make you feel what I felt. Betrayed, used, broken." A pause. "But then, you brought me breakfast. You gave me silence when I needed it. You looked at me like I was more than a title." She looked at him now. "And I hated you for that." His jaw flexed, but he stayed quiet. "I don't know when it changed. Maybe it was the umbrella. Maybe it was the apartment. Maybe it was the way you didn't try to fix me. You just saw me." Her voice cracked, not loud, but honest. "But now I look at you, and I feel everything I swore I'd buried." She drew a breath. "I think I love you, Liam." Silence. Not dramatic, not heavy, just stunned. Liam turned to her slowly, as if afraid she'd vanish. His eyes, usually teasing sharp, were glassy now. "You're not saying that because you feel sorry for me?" She almost laughed. "Do I look like someone who pities?" He nodded once, slowly. "Then let me say something too." He reached across the console, brushing his fingers along hers. "I've been falling in love with you since the day you rolled your eyes at me." Celeste's lips trembled. He leaned in. This time, nothing interrupted. Not a phone, not a lie, not a storm. Their lips met, not like fire, but like truth. Slow, terrified, unavoidable. When they finally pulled apart, Liam rested his forehead against hers. "We're going to ruin each other, aren't we?" she whispered. "Probably. Still worth it." For the first time in years, Celeste Langford didn't set an alarm. She didn't check her inbox at sunrise, didn't read market reports over breakfast. She lay in bed, barefoot, tangled in sheets that still smelled like him. Liam. She didn't believe in fate, but last night, the kiss, the confession, the silence after felt like the closest thing she'd ever had to destiny. And maybe, just maybe, she deserved it. But love doesn't exist in a vacuum, especially not when you're Langford blood. By 11 a.m., her name was all over the financial blogs. Langford heiress caught in scandal with driver. Celeste Langford's reckless romance. Who is Liam Hayes? Sleeping with the help inside Langford's downfall. Someone had leaked photos. Not just of them in the car, but from the gala, from the Brooklyn Bridge, from outside Liam's apartment. Paparazzi don't work that fast. This was planted. She stormed into her office, heels like gunfire. Who did this? She demanded. Her legal advisor hesitated. There's chatter in the board. Some of the investors, they've been waiting for something to move you out. This may be what they needed. Celeste laughed, dry, bitter. So that's it? I fall in love and suddenly I'm unfit to run a company? The silence was her answer. Down in the garage, Liam waited beside the Maybach. When he saw her, he smiled, until he saw her face. You know. She nodded. It's out. All of it? All of it. They sat inside the car, engine off, doors shut, like the rest of the world might disappear if they just stayed still. You think it was me? He asked quietly. No, she said instantly. And she meant it. She trusted him. That was the worst part. Because now trust wasn't enough. You should fire me, he said. No. You should deny it. Say I stalked you, that you were vulnerable. Stop. Celeste, I'm not ashamed of you. Her voice was sharp, cracking open from the inside. I've been ashamed of boardrooms full of liars, of investors who shake hands while sticking knives in your back. But you, never. He looked at her, really looked at her, like she was burning and he couldn't put her out. But then she said something that broke both of them. I can survive the public, but I can't survive watching them destroy you. He whispered, You're not the one ruining me. I am. That night, the board called an emergency meeting. Some demanded she step down temporarily. Some hinted at permanent removal. Her legal team warned her. The faster you distance yourself from Liam, the better your chances. But Celeste stared at them with ice in her veins. If they want my title, they'll have to take it. But they don't get to rewrite my life. Back in her apartment, she found a note on her coffee table. Liam's handwriting. I love you, which is exactly why I'm walking away. You were fire long before me. Don't let me be the thing that dims you. L. Her knees gave out before she made it to the couch. She curled around the note like it was oxygen, and whispered, You didn't ruin me, Liam. You're the only thing that made me feel alive. Celeste didn't leave her apartment for 3 days. Not because she was hiding, because she was planning. Grief was dangerous, but grief with intelligence, that was nuclear. By day 4, she had memorized every clause of her own corporate contract, found every loophole the board was trying to use against her, traced every leak, every name, every motive. They thought she was soft now, distracted, in love. But love hadn't made her weak. It had made her clear. On day 5, she walked into the Langford boardroom in a navy power suit and no makeup, which, for Celeste Langford, was the equivalent of war paint. The room stilled. Some shifted in their seats. Others smiled politely, knives behind their eyes. She didn't sit. You want a show? She said. Here it is. She paced the room slowly. Yes, I was in a relationship with my driver. Gasps. Shifts. An attempted interruption. She raised a hand and silenced the room. Yes, I knew who he was. And yes, I fell in love with him anyway. The CFO cleared his throat. Celeste, with all due respect. No. Her voice cut the air. With all due respect, don't pretend to care about my private life when what you're really scared of is that I didn't break under pressure the way you hoped I would. She placed a document on the table, a resignation letter. Not hers. Theirs. Names of 3 board members who had conspired to leak private surveillance footage to the press. Here's the evidence. Here are the signed NDAs they violated. You can remove me if you want, but you'll be going down with me. Silence. Someone swore under their breath. Another stood up and walked out. The room broke. Not with applause, not with cheers, but with respect laced with fear. The kind of respect a woman earns when she stops apologizing. But she didn't stay to bask in the silence.
She left the room before they could call it victory, because she had something more important to fix. She found Liam in Queens, where it all began. Same apartment, same cracked steps. He opened the door and froze. She stood there in the same navy suit, heels dusted with city grime, heart beating like she was 17 again. "You left," she said quietly. He nodded. "Because I thought I was protecting you." She stepped forward. "You weren't. You were running." A pause. Then she added, almost too softly to hear, "And I don't need a man who runs. I need a man who stays." He reached for her hand, held it. "Then I'm staying." That night they didn't make promises. They didn't say forever. But they lay on the same couch where it all started. Shoes kicked off, jackets discarded, silence shared like warmth. And when she finally spoke, it was only this: "I gave up everything today." Liam looked at her. "No, Celeste, you took it back." They say when you burn down a house, you don't get to choose what turns to ash. The fire Celeste started had cleared the rot. Corrupt board members ousted, NDAs activated, lawsuits underway. But it didn't come with casualties. The press hounded her, former allies vanished. A major investor pulled out within 24 hours. Langford Atelier's stock dropped 14% in 2 days. And suddenly, Celeste Langford was no longer the untouchable CEO in Louboutin heels. She was a scandal with a love story. But she didn't hide. Every day she showed up, hair tied back, head held higher than ever. She walked into meetings where she wasn't wanted, answered questions reporters had no right to ask, refused to let anyone rewrite her story. Meanwhile, Liam fought a war of his own. He'd quit the job, officially. No more suits, no more Maybach, no more lines he couldn't cross. Instead, he returned to shifts at the docks. Quiet, honest, exhausting. And yet, something had changed. The men who used to joke about rich girls and glass ceilings stopped laughing when they saw him on TV beside her. Some offered congratulations. Others asked, "Why her?" He always answered the same: "Because she saw the parts of me no one else bothered to look at." But the past was never done with either of them. One night, Liam came home to find an envelope on his doorstep. No return address, no signature. Just a single name on the flap: Richard Hayes. He opened it. Inside, a check. 7 figures. A note. "You don't need to play the hero, son. Walk away. There's still time to live quietly. Leave her behind before she costs you everything. R.H." He stared at it for a long time. Then set it on fire in the sink. Watched the flames eat his father's name like it never existed. But the anger didn't burn away with the paper. Because deep down, the note wasn't just cruel. It was a threat. That night, he told Celeste everything. Showed her a photo of the check. Told her about the note. Her jaw clenched.
"You think he'd come after you? I think he's been watching, waiting. And now he knows we're real." She stood, paced, then whispered the truth neither wanted to admit. "He might try to bury us the way he buried my father, but this time they didn't break. They didn't hide. They sat on the floor, knees touching, hands locked, and made a silent vow. If war was coming, they'd face it together. The meeting wasn't planned. It was provoked. A single text from an unknown number arrived on Liam's phone at 6:03 a.m. "We should talk. You've earned that much. Richard Hayes." He didn't tell Celeste. Not yet. By 10 a.m., he stood outside an upscale law firm on the Upper West Side, all glass and polished marble, the kind of place that had always smelled like decisions being made behind locked doors. Richard Hayes was already waiting inside. Thinner than Liam remembered. Grayer. Still sharp, still smug, still calculating. "Son." Liam didn't sit. "Don't call me that." Richard leaned back, fingers tented like a man who'd never once known guilt. "You always thought you were the better man, working jobs beneath you, carrying the weight I left, because someone had to clean up what you destroyed.
You think love makes you righteous? Richard asked. She's not your redemption. She's your blind spot. Liam's fists clenched. But he didn't throw the punch. He said something that scared Richard more. I came here to forgive you. Silence. But forgiveness isn't a gift. It's a grave. And I'm not ready to bury this yet. Richard sighed, like a man disappointed the world hadn't bent to his will. Then don't come crawling back when she ruins you. Liam turned to leave, paused at the door. No, Father, I'm not the one who's crawling. And then he walked away. Not as a victim, not as a boy desperate for approval, but as a man who'd survived the wreckage and still chose love over legacy. Later that night, Liam told Celeste everything. She didn't cry, didn't rage. She simply held him, forehead to his, hand on his chest, like anchoring herself to something solid. He can't touch us now, she whispered. No, Liam said, but the scars are still there. Then we'll wear them, she replied, like proof we chose to heal instead of rot. Outside, it began to rain again. Not a storm, just something gentle, soft enough to wash old wounds, real enough to remind them. They had made it this far, together. 6 months later, the world had moved on. The headlines had faded. The boardroom coups, the stock dips, the public scorn, all just noise now, swallowed by time and newer scandals. Celeste Langford was no longer the youngest CEO in New York. She didn't care, because for the first time in her life, she was free. She still worked. Of course she did. But now it was from a small design studio tucked above a bakery in Soho. No marble, no board, no corporate games. Just light, fabric, sketches on the wall, and the sound of Liam Hayes humming from the kitchen. They lived in a walk-up now. 4th floor, brick walls, a fire escape they used like a balcony. Some nights they cooked barefoot. Other nights they ordered takeout and fell asleep with half-eaten noodles on the couch. And once a week, without fail, they walked across the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. One evening, as gold light melted into the East River, Liam paused mid-step. Celeste looked up. What? He reached into his jacket pocket. Not a ring. A key. She blinked. You already live with me. He smiled. It's not for me. She took it, turned it over in her hand. What is it? Studio space. Down the hall from yours. Fully bayed. No strings. Unless you want to tie one around my finger. She laughed softly, then leaned forward and kissed him. Not like thunder, not like fire, like home.
Later that night, they sat on the floor of their apartment, a pizza box between them, 2 glasses of cheap wine, and Miles Davis playing on the record player. She rested her head on his shoulder. You know what I hate? She murmured. What? That they called it a scandal. He looked down at her. It wasn't? She shook her head. It was a beginning. And somewhere in the quiet, between bites of cold pizza and soft jazz, Celeste Langford finally allowed herself to speak the words she used to think made people weak. I love you. No armor, no test, no condition, just truth. And Liam, steady, scarred, soft-eyed, whispered it back like he'd been waiting his whole life to say it. They didn't need titles anymore. Not CEO, not driver. Just 2 people who had been broken by the world and had chosen, again and again, to meet in the ruins and build something new.